Today, we're in our brand new shop for part 2 of our sport truck on steroids. We'll drop a Chevy V8 drivetrain in our S10, and we'll do it all for under 10 grand.
Whoa.
And our brand new shop here at the POWERBLOCK Tech Center. We've got to be the luckiest guys on the planet. We've got everything it takes to tackle any job we could dream up, and then a few more. Man, this shop is amazing, and we are so pumped to be here. The best thing is that we're right down the hall from Ian and Jesse, Lou and Jared, Mike and Joe, and Courtney. But now, I bet you're looking at this wondering, what the heck is it?
This is our very own crane. We called our good friends over at Cundall Industries, told them we needed the biggest, baddest crane they had. So what do? They brought over this awesome K-Track.
15 feet tall with twin 43-foot bridges, our Cundall crane has 2 Harrington 1-ton hoists, which will allow us to lift engines, truck beds, even whole bodies, and move them anywhere we want. Obviously, the new shop's a work in progress, and we'll be continually upgrading and adding stuff as we go, but for now, we got a truck to build. Now, you guys remember Project S10K, our $10,000 budget buildup that's going to transform this boring, worn-out commuter vehicle into a reliable, rock-solid, and great-looking street truck. So far, we've spent $1,400 on our brake system, $350 on our rear lowering springs and blocks, and about $80 on OE replacement shocks all the way around. Then we went to TireRack.com's garage tool and picked out these trick-looking 17-inch hoops wrapped in 245 45/17s. For a very reasonable $1,240. With the B&M shift kit and whole shot converter, we dropped another $584. That eats up $3,654 and only leaves us with about $6,300 left over, which means we got to start pinching pennies.
Oh yeah? Let me show you what I bought with my roll of pennies. It's the GM Performance 350 crate engine. It's got 4 bolt mains, steel rods, cast aluminum pistons, and makes 290 horses and 326 pound-feet of torque.
We got some other tricks up our sleeve to wake it up a little too, such as Holley's projection dual-plane intake manifold and their high-performance throttle body. Now, what this is going to allow us to do is to utilize the original wiring and computer in our S10. And check out these valve covers from GM Performance. Nice. With headers and TBI injection, we're looking at a solid 300 horse. Now, the good news for us, since we're trying to save money, is that all of this stuff is going to bolt right onto our Crate 350.
We're doubling the horsepower of our S10, but we can reuse our pulleys, brackets, power steering, and the AC system from the 4.3. Your better auto parts stores, they'll loan you most of the tools you need, like pullers and installers, if you don't already have them at home. Now, we're using air to save time, but all this can be done with basic hand tools.
Cleaning these brackets won't make them work any better, but there's nothing wrong with making things look better, and now's the time to do it. Just because we're on a budget, it doesn't mean we have to look like it. When they say crate engine, they mean it literally comes shipped in a crate. It's a brand new long block from the heads down. This is not remanufactured. And nothing against remans, but for just $1,500, it's nice to know we'll get a full and long life out of this engine. Hey, no surprises here installing our new intake manifold. We're going to use stock replacement gaskets and some RTV for the front and rear seal. But the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of those boring steel valve covers. A thin film of RTV sealant around the water jackets will hold your gaskets in place while you set your intake manifold.
After your 1/4-inch bead is run front and rear, gently set the manifold in place and finger tighten the bolts. RTV stands for room temperature vulcanization, which means that it cures in the open air.
Following the manufacturer's torque sequence, torque the manifold to 20 to 25 foot-pounds. As good as RTV is, it can act as a lubricant with cork gaskets. And if you over-tighten, you can push your gaskets out and cause leaks. Just use gasket glue to hold things in place.
Finally, we'll use a lift plate. That'll stop anything from dropping into the top of the engine. That's never good. All right, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install the flex plate. One thing we can't use off the 4.3 is the old flex plate. Our V8 flex plate set us back 50 bucks.
We're going to be using this high torque starter from GM Performance because it's going to give us more header clearance and it's not going to be as affected by the excessive exhaust gas temperature from the headers. Now you guys remember last time we worked on S10K, we divorced our tranny from old Lamo, but we still got some unfinished business up here.
That's right, Kev. And with this new torque converter, we're gonna put this tranny with our new motor, and we've got a match made in heaven.
Up next, a new converter and serpentine pulley, all on the cheap.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks in our awesome new shop here at the POWERBLOCK Tech Center.
Yeah, the next thing we gotta do is install our new torque converter into our tranny. Remember, when we had this open, it was super clean and it shifted smooth. So, we added a shift kit that would handle the power of our 350. So, the only thing we're gonna have to do today is change out the torque converter, give ourselves a little more insurance by replacing the seal. Now here's where most tranny leaks happen, at the front pump seal. A seal was shipped with our new converter, so carefully pry the old one out and seat the new one back in place. Before you install your new torque converter, you want to be sure to fill it with 1 quart of tranny fluid for lubrication before your initial startup. Our new V8 makes 330 foot-pounds at 3,700 RPM. And this new converter will engage right at about 3,200, giving us peak torque at the best place in the power band.
We're trying to do as much assembly as we can out of the truck, just because we got 360 degrees of access.
Ready?
Yeah. These made together perfectly. Now we'll bolt the converter to the flex plate. It's nice to have somebody to help here too, and it saves time. Now, even though these are lock nuts, you want to make sure you use thread lock as well.
All right, we've got our torque converter bolted up. Now it's time to put the dust shield on.
All right, our brackets are all spruced up. All the accessories from our 4.3 are ready to put on our new 350. The only thing we won't reuse is this water pump. We went down to O'Reilly's and picked one up. But before any of this goes in place, you got to replace your balancer.
Here, I'll take that. All right, before you put your balancer on, you're gonna wanna make sure you use your new Woodruff key. With the balancer on the front of the crane, use the mounting bolt to pull it up onto the shaft, but not all the way until you put your crank pulley on. Okay, with our pulley in place, we tighten down the center bolt and it seats the balancer.
Since we're using the truck's fuel pump in the tank, we'll block off the mechanical pump port on the block. Be sure to use a correct water pump for your drive pulleys. Our serpentine system uses a 1988 and newer reverse rotation pump made for a 350. Your engine will overheat if the pump runs the wrong way.
Now, that's a cast iron pump, but we hit it with some aluminum paint and it matches everything else pretty good.
Now this truck came with air and it's still gonna blow cold because everything bolts right back up.
Yeah, and if you want to run a serpentine system but you're on a budget, you can use the factory GM setup and save yourself some money. Using a straight edge will help you keep your pulleys aligned.
A mechanical clutch fan is still one of the best ways to move air across an engine, and you still have the option of reusing the 4.3 fan with the S10 V8 swap. You want to drop your distributor in with the engine out of the vehicle because you've got almost no firewall clearance with this thing installed. Now, in order to drop your distributor in place properly, you've got to establish top dead center on number 1 cylinder. An easy way to do that is to turn the engine over by hand while your thumb's over the spark plug hole.
And when you hear the air escape from the cylinder, you know you're there.
There you go. When you seat your distributor, make sure the rotor is pointing at number 1. We're using the Petronix HEI with a separate coil because it has a much smaller cap.
With the engine ready, it's time to stuff her in. But before we do that, we gotta get the truck over to the lift. And we'll do that during the break.
When we come back, we'll wedge it all together and reset the pinion angle.
All right, welcome back to Trucks and our Project S10K. Now, this is the time where we put our 350 V8 into our S10. But before we do that, we're gonna show you how we got to this point.
We ditched the old V6, added a shift kit to the tranny, bolted on a new torque converter, married it to our new 350 V8 Create engine, and slapped on all the accessories.
Now, all that work's got us to this point. Our 350's put together, polished, and ready to go.
Since we're going from a V6 to a V8, obviously these stock motor mounts ain't gonna cut it. But let me show you what will. We called Stealth Conversions, and they sent us this kit that utilizes these 2.8 liter motor mounts along with their laser cut engine mounts, and this system will allow us to drop our V8 down into the stock S10 location. Now this is the most important part of this kit because as you guys know, when you slam a truck like we've done, your whole driveline gets thrown out of whack. Your pinion angle changes, the relationship of your tail shaft and your yoke changes, so we also had them send us this transmission spacer, this support bearing spacer, and this pinion angle shim. Now this is specifically designed for the amount of drop that we've got on our S10. It's going to get us right back on track. They also have an axle setback kit, oil filter relocation brackets, even these spacers to create your own rad hoses for your conversion. Plus, they've got this awesome manual that covers both 2- and 4-wheel drive S10 V8 conversions. You ready?
Yeah, let's get these on.
Cool. The 2.8 was a V6 used in S10s and a lot of other GM cars in the 80s. And since our 95 frame is the same as the older ones, these motor mounts will bolt right into place.
Yeah, I know. Not everybody has an overhead crane like our Kundal, but everything we're doing here can be done with an inexpensive cherry picker and a good set of jack stands.
Whoa, whoa. Hey guys, this is exactly why we put the distributor in over the table, because there is no clearance between the distributor and the firewall.
That's right. The wrong move, you'll bust that cap off in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and that's no good.
That's never good. This is really a two-man job, and it'll probably take you 45 minutes to an hour.
Once the engine and tranny are in place, the engine plates go in between the mounts and the block, and then all the bolts are hand tightened. Now with all the bolts in, jack your engine up to the highest adjustment. Then snug it all down. That way you'll have the best clearance between your oil pan and cross member.
How's it look?
Looks good.
Man, we got tons of clearance here.
A lot of things lined up good.
There's a couple real good reasons you want to use headers on a project like ours. The biggest one is that the left bank cast iron manifold is going to give you a fit problem, and this header is designed so that our steering shaft goes right through the primaries like that. Now painted headers are fine, but they're only painted on the outside, and eventually over time they're going to rust through from condensation on the inside. These ceramic metallic coated headers are coated on the inside of the tubes as well as the outside. They're going to stay looking as great as they do right now, and since these Patriots are only about $100 higher than the painted headers, guess what we're using?
You know, I really like those headers we got, but you're going to want to make sure you put your plugs in before the headers go on, because you know what a bear they are to get to. Especially that number 6 plug.
You should always pre-gap your plugs before you thread them in. Never assume they're gapped right from the factory.
The passenger side is no sweat. There's plenty of clearance and it bolts right in.
The driver's side takes a little surgery. The dust boot goes away because the headers will melt it. The steering box is unbolted from the frame while it's still connected to the pitman arm. And the steering shaft is unbolted at the rag joint. And then the box is set aside. Now the driver's side header will slide right in place.
Oh man, those headers look awesome, Paul.
Oh yeah, they do.
When we come back, we're going to make sure the rubber meets the road by putting our drive shaft in this S10. Stick around.
Hey, here we are back at Trucks and our S10K project. We've got the motor and the tranny installed. Now let's get this driveline in.
And to make sure we got the correct angles, we're going to use this pinion alignment shim setup.
Ah.
You ready? We're dropping 2 inches up front and 4 inches in the rear, and that changes your driveline angles. The result is that the pinion tilts up at the U-joint, This could cause extra wear and even force the drive shaft into the floor as the axle wraps under hard acceleration.
The C-clamps are a good way to keep all the leaves in place while we're working. Now we can finally install the drive shaft. We could go have a one-piece shaft made if we were going to go race this truck, but there's nothing wrong with a two-piece shaft for the street. And our rear axle is the same one that GM uses for most of its V8 Camaros. So they'll handle the extra power of our V8, no sweat.
All right, let's get her on the round.
Let's do it.
Man, we got a shift kit, we got headers,
Yeah, and it's dropped into the weeds with a 350.
and we're still under budget.
There it is. Check it out, man.
First motor in the new shop.
I can't wait to break it in.
Hey, it's like that giant crane on top. You guys are wondering, what the hell is this? Well, Kevin and I are gonna tell you all about it.
That's right, Goat Boy. This is Kelderman's 2005 2500 Series 4x4. This baby's sitting on a 12-inch straight axle conversion lift kit, and it's got a computerized air ride system with 3 different ride height settings. This is the highest setting, but check this out. Two compressors feed 2 3-gallon air tanks to keep the bags happy, while dual Bilsteins on each corner are going to absorb any bumps that you might feel with crushing small cars with these 40 by 15.5 by 22-inch Nittos. As awesome as that truck is, you can get a Kelderman air ride for your ride. This is their 10 to 12-inch air ride suspension lift kit. It replaces your factory coils with these big old long travel high capacity airbags. Your factory trailing arms are replaced with these longer ones to keep the axle in the correct location. And check out this massive sway bar. You get all the hardware you need, and what's cool is these kits require a minimal amount of cutting and drilling. When you consider a 12-inch lift, that's pretty impressive. Options include Bilstein shocks and various different controllers. Kelderman air ride kits start at about $6 grand.
These may be small, but they're mighty. These are jammer injectors by Edge Products.
Edge has worked with a major OEM manufacturer to make an injector designed from the ground up for high-performance applications. These can flow up to 83 pounds per hour, yet idle as smooth as silk, and they fit almost any engine that uses a stock Bosch or GM connector. How good are they, you ask? Hennessy uses these in their world's fastest Street Viper. Now, they come in both long and short, so take your pick. They'll both run you about $65.